So lesson 2 of the first week, we have excavating and lifting, which is chapter 3 in your textbook. And we have 4 learning objectives for today. Explain the application and operation of the excavation equipment. The equipment that we are talking about for excavation is hydraulics, excavators, shovels, drag lights, and clamshells. And we want to estimate the production of the excavation equipment, and we emphasis on the hydraulic excavators, and we describe the trenching and trenchless technology, so it's more with the slide that we have. And then talk about the lifting. We select cranes and explain the operation and safety requirements for the cranes. So let's start with the excavation equipment, and one of the key concepts is to know what type of bucket capacity that we use for different type of excavation equipment. So let me start with the bucket capacity. There are a few of them. Let me draw a bucket. So we have here a typical bucket on the side view of a bucket. And then if we're talking about the front view of that one, it tend to be something like that. The side view. And for the material itself, as you can see, it can have the carry the material for the bucket, and of course on the other side we can have that material. So the volume of the stuck volume, which is defined by the bucket capacity when the load is struck off the flush with the bucket size, so that we call this one is VS, struck volume. And when we also have a heat volume with including the excess material that we call here due to the angle of repose, something we talked in lesson 1. So we have excess material VE, and the whole volume of VS, struck volume, and VE, excess material, that we call heap volume. So let's define a few key terms in here. The first one we have is struck capacity, and that is VS. And like I say, it is the bucket capacity when the load is struck or flush with the bucket size there. The second one, when we consider the excess material VE, that we call it heap volume. And that called VR. And in this case, VR, heap volume, is equal to the struck volume plus excess volume, VE. So E stands for excess. And for other type of equipment like clamshell, we use the other capacity, we call it plate light capacity, plate light or water light. Plate light or water light capacity volume. and normally, for example, apply for clamshell. What is clamshell? We have the slide, separate slide that talking about that. So what is plate-like capacity is the bucket volume contained within the bucket when following the outline of the bucket size, and also same as the water-like capacity assume a line of material flush with the lowest edge of the bucket. So when you duct the material under the water, and that normally clamshell do, and that we use the water-like volume. So those are the concepts. To estimate the bucket capacity, there are a few ways that you have, depends on the time of excavation equipment. So let me go to the slide to show you a few. In terms of the bucket capacity rating method, as you can see here, depends on the machine, like I say, if it's backhoe or shovel, that we are going to talk next. If we use cable, then we use the struct volume for the rated bucket capacity. If we use hydraulics, which we normally use in our today construction, that we use hip volume at the 1 angle of pre-post. So it means horizontal 1 and vertical 1. And then the clamshell, like I say, use plate light or water light volume. Track lights, another kind of equipment. We use 90% of struct volume, and for the loader, it hip volume at horizontal 2, vertical 1 angle of pre-post. So those are the rating method for the bucket capacity. In the real life, in order to have the most accurate estimate of the bucket load, we normally use the hip bucket volume, VR, but we have to multiply with the bucket fill factor to consider the loose material, etc. And in that case, the volume will measure at the loose cubic yard for samples. And if you don't recall what is loose cubic yard, go back to the lesson number 1. So what is here, as you can see, the bucket fill factor for excavator, and it depends on the material. Like common earth, you have 0.8 to 1.1, sand and gravel 0.9 to 1, etc. Hard clay, wet clay, rock, well blasted, and rock poorly blasted. So all of the bucket fill factor, and they give you a range. So it means depends on other condition in the problem that we solve in this class, and you use these references, and you will be able to choose between the range here if the problem don't give you any specific number. For example, if we say sand and gravel, you want to find out the bucket fill factor, go to this table. It's somewhere between 0.9 and 1, so you may select somewhere in the middle, 0.95, etc. So let's go back to the class here, so that you have the bucket capacity concept that we're talking about. So let's go to one time of the equipment, excavating equipment, so that we can know more about this. So that and the most popular one, I can say, that is the hydraulics excavator, with the image just show you there. And hydraulic excavator, normally people also call it backhoe by the bucket, as you can see in the back, like that. Backhoe. So from this image here, this is a Caterpillar 324E model, and this is a hydraulic excavator, and you see the boom length, etc. For the concept of what is boom length, you can go to the slide, and with different terminologies, the boom, the dipper or the bucket or dipper cylinder in here, or stick or dipper arm cylinder. So all of that and have in the backhoe. So let's go back to here, and as you can see in this case, the when it excavates the volume of the bucket, as you can see here, that in this case it hip volume, because there he accept material, accept the on the bucket, and that should be a loose material. So we have to find out the heap volume time the bucket fill factor that we talking about earlier. So what is the application for hydraulic excavator? So let me start here. Normally they use for excavation below grade. So do the pit excavation, etc. So primarily for excavation below grade. So below where the excavator stand. And other function, other application that you may see with this hydraulic excavator or backhoe, other it can lay in pipe bedding. So you can use the bucket here for laying pipe bedding. And I think if you drive around, when you see the pipe, you may see hydraulics excavator or backhoe do that function as well. So we lay in pipe bedding, placing pipe for sure you can use. Pipe itself, pulling trench shield just for water control during the excavation. We can use it to pull in just like a seat trench shield, like steel pile for blocking the water into the excavation. After finish, we can pull that out. We can use the excavator, and of course we can also use the excavator for backfilling. After excavation finish on the construction work, we can fill in the material back with the excavator. So they have multiple function for the hydraulic excavator, and that's why they become popular. So with that, we go over the different kind of bucket capacity and the overview of hydraulics excavator, the most popular excavation equipment in construction. And in the next video, we will talk about the production of this backhoe hydraulic excavator and apply to one problem.